2. Mic check. 1, 2. You already know what it is, Chauncey, aka you Karima Great Men of God Media, with another GMOGmedia TV reaction on Hurricane Matthew night. This hurricane really ain't doing nothing right now. It's supposed to make, well, it's actually already past Miami as of this video recording. So the track says that it's supposed to go to South Carolina, North Carolina, hit the west coast of Florida, obviously, and go back up northwest, and then come back all the way around, which is weird. That's never happened before. I guess because of the dew pressure point and the wind. But it's supposed to go like this, and then come back down, which makes absolutely no sense. But, you know, the creator makes things crazy like that, and we'll see what happens. But right now, as you can see, I'm uploading on hurricane night. You know, my kids are out of school. They shut down everything. All the schools and everything is shut down here. So just got to wait and see, especially next week when it's supposedly supposed to come all the way back down here. You know, we'll see what happens. But anyway, family, I'm going to do a reaction to T.I., who was on ESPN First Take today, talking about the unjust killings of unarmed black men in this place we call the wilderness of North America. All right. So he's going to be talking about basically all the unjust regarding black people. And he has an album that's supposed to be coming out, or an EP or something like that, that's supposed to be dropping, addressing that issue. So I'm looking forward to what he has to say, because, you know, he's a very astute brother when it comes to dealing with black issues. You know, T.I. is very on point when it comes to dealing with. He knows, compared to all these other rappers, man, he knows how to talk about issues that matter. You know, he'll talk about issues regarding, you know, all the other nonsensical things that rappers talk about. You know, money, you know, drugs, glorifying the lifestyle of, you know, that kind of stuff. But he knows how to switch it off and switch it on. But when it comes to dealing with black issues, he knows how to address those things. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. All right, but before I start on that, family, if you're new to this channel, once again, my name is Chauncey, aka you Karima Great Men of God Media. On this channel, I talk about counter racism. I also talk about issues that affect black people collectively as a group, and I offer my suggestion on how to replace this broken system of injustice, this broken system of racism, white supremacy, with a system of justice. So if you subscribe to that ideology, then please subscribe to this channel. If not, you know what to do. Click off, exit. It's just that simple. All right, so let's proceed with this ESPN First Take interview of T.I. talking about black issues and the unjust killings of black men in this country. So let's get it popping.
We now welcome rapper, producer, Atlanta superfan, friend of the show, T.I. to the desk. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Good seeing you, big boy.
Hey, man, always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
I know.
So you have
Likewise.
a new EP out, Us or Else, available exclusively on Tidal. Can you tell us about that new music and what message you want to send?
Well, it premiered exclusively on Tidal. It's now available everywhere where music is streamed and bought as we speak. And the message is basically, I just wanted to use my platform to create some healthy dialogue, man, to institute some change in the nation.
Now, when you say that, speak specifically about what change you would like to assist in instituting. Well, what's on your mind?
I want to institute change in the nation as far as the inequalities and the oppression that exists in America. And I mean, of course, we can't help but notice the consistent atrocities that continue to plague our communities, as far as policemen overstepping the boundaries of their duties and stepping out of abusing their powers to kill and murder.
Talk to me about the level of sensitivity that you had, and just for the purposes of this show, I want to let everybody know this. You're a friend of the show. You've been on this show on many occasions, sure, as we highlighted, and we're not going to revisit all the stuff that's going on with you, because we've done that on this show and beyond. We don't owe that to our audience anymore. But I feel compelled to bring this up because one of the incidences that you had was with a police officer back years ago. You know, there's something in some Florida mall and all of this other stuff. So you've had history history with police officers.
Absolutely.
I need you to talk about what you're trying to say and how those personal experiences you endured have influenced you. Touching on this now.
Well, see, that's one thing that I think that you brought up that you know is very, very key, because the law enforcement community and the government of America always preaches highly upon accountability when it comes to citizens who break the law and how they should be held accountable and brought to justice, and nobody should slip through the cracks. Okay, but when it comes to police officers, their accountability is a lot less highlighted. You know, they don't necessarily think that they should be held accountable.
True.
Like, you know, I know when I have had my transgressions, it's always been, okay, you're gonna accept responsibility, you're gonna hold yourself accountable, you're going to endure or withstand whatever adversities or punishment that there is to follow
community service,
whatever it is, and you're going to go through it and come out on the other side better. But whenever you have the opportunity for them to do the same thing, it's all but nothing.
I've heard you say support the idea of federal oversight, at least for local police departments. Is that because obviously this goes on in big cities too, and there are many examples, but oftentimes you'll see one of these bad encounters and you get the sense that maybe it's a small town police department where they don't have the kind of training maybe or the applicants that they might have in a more metropolitan area, so there's uneven policing? Or why? Why do you think there should be federal oversight of local police?
Well, I think that if you have local jurisdiction over local policing, then it kind of makes it difficult for a fair and just process to be taken. I think that the same way back in the late 80s, early 90s, the same way that the crack law had been instituted due to the amount of atrocities that crack cocaine had plagued the community with, and they felt that it was necessary to upstream crack cocaine into a mandatory minimum status on a federal level. The same way they instituted the mandatory possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, a mandatory 5 years on a federal level because of how much gun violence had taken place to plague the nation. That is the same state of an epidemic crisis that we are in right now with police brutality.
So in other words, it's an epidemic crisis?
Absolutely, it's an epidemic crisis. How can you not have an epidemic crisis when you have innocent people losing their lives on a consistent basis? I mean, that is what we constitute an epidemic crisis.
So in other words, there are examples when the federal government intercedes and imposes their authority on local jurisdictions if we as a society believe that it's important enough.
Absolutely.
And that this issue, you feel, as a society, we have not come to a consensus yet that it's important enough.
Absolutely. But you know why? Because in those other cases, that happened when, forgive me for saying that, but when the epidemic started affecting white people. When crack cocaine...
You ain't got to say forgive me for that.
When gun violence started affecting white homes, that's when
That's interesting, because in the NFL, the protests, which, Kaepernick's been on the record and many have been on the record, look, this is a domestic sporting event. We didn't interject politics into it. National anthem. The league did that as a show of patriotism. So since we're interjecting, well, it's not like an international event where we're showing one face as a nation.
Right.
So we're going to protest a domestic issue.
Sure.
And the reason that actually might have traction is because then that does start to affect everybody's lives, right? Oh, man, I just want to watch a football game and hear politics are coming into my
I don't want to hear about the innocent minorities who lost their lives along the way to make it into the people who didn't make it to see the football season opening. I'm sure Philando Castile and I'm sure that Alton Sterling, I'm sure they were football fans. I'm sure they would have loved to see some game.
Freddie Gray.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, and I don't think that for us to say it's not time for us to deal with this, and we don't want to think about this right now. I mean, like, how could you say that about the loss of life?
Well, this is one of the things that you're focused on. My question to you is, would it be the only thing? And before you answer, hear where I'm coming from with this. The actions of brutality on the part of some police officers is something that cannot be ignored against minorities. There is no doubt about that. But we've also got a situation where there are a lot of black lives that are being lost, period. Chicago, various other cities in this country. So as an artist, when you focus on some of the problems ailing our community, is this your focus, or are you focusing on all of that? Not just what happens to us, but what we're also doing to each other from time to time.
Well, absolutely. I do believe that, unity is necessary. I do believe that. But also you cannot use excuses like that to give people an out as to how they cannot correct themselves, because there's negatives everywhere in our nation. And when they use the term black on black crime, I heard this right here on ESPN. When they use the term black on black crime, they completely take away the notion of white people who kill white people. There's no white on
Dr.
white
Michael Eric Dyson, when we did the show in Chicago, he said whites are killing whites, Latinos are killing Latinos.
Absolutely.
It's neighbor on neighbor, so why are you focusing on black
There's
on black?
no white on white crime. There's no brown on brown crime. It's only black on black crime. So why are we focusing so much on that and not focusing on the violence that who proceeds to exist in America?
I totally agree with you, but let me tell you why I asked that question. Because I often say to a lot of white folks that I work with, it's a numbers game too. When I'm on my radio show, for example, it's a numbers game. White folks make up 66% of the population. The Latino folks make up 17% of the population. The voting bloc that they have makes up about 27% of the population. If black folks are at 13% of the population, then because of the low number that we are,
right,
it profoundly affects us more so than it may affect other communities because our numbers are dwindling. That's my argument. What's yours?
I mean, I think that numbers definitely have something to do with it, but also the position that the communities have been put in. I believe that there have been staggering examples of how the African American communities have been targeted from the Contra scandal that led to the crack epidemic, that led to the war on drugs, that led to mass incarceration, that led to police brutality. That, time after time, we have insufficient education in our communities. We have less opportunities as far as financially.
You're talking about structural institutional responsibility, and whenever this conversation comes up and people are talking about that structural and institutional, structural inequality based on institutional behavior in the past, we all know the history of this country. We know why black people are per capita less educated, less employed, etc., because of the pernicious effects of institutional racism, institutional racism. Sorry. So whenever that conversation is brought up, you always hear voices talking about personal responsibility, and it's not that that's illegitimate, but that's not the conversation it seems that you're having. You're talking about institutional.
I do truly believe in personal responsibility, but when one takes personal responsibility and continues to have doors shut in their face and the goal line move whenever they think that, okay, well, this is what I have to do to take personal responsibility for myself, and this is what I have to do to institute change in my life, and they do that, and then the goalposts move.
Right.
And then the doors are shut. And then all of a sudden now you have to deal with a police officer who's asking you why you're walking home from a job interview that you just got rejected from. And now you're supposed to handle yourself like a model citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't understand how personal responsibility can come up when that is being taken and when accountability is being accepted and there's still no progress made in generations.
Yep.
The same things we're talking about now. I listened to some tapes. So as I was recording my EP, the one thing I wanted to do is include some of our famous leaders who had spoken on our behalf over time. And I listened to a tape of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King,
Edgar Evers.
I did not hear Edgar Evers and Minister Farrakhan, and but anyway, so Malcolm X is talking about police brutality as though he's talking about it right after Freddie Gray. It seems like he's talking about it right after Freddie Gray. Like the things that he's talking about
Still happening.
It's still happening.
Of course.
He's talking about the racial divide and the systemic inequalities in America. He's talking about it as though he's living right here today.
Decades later, it's
The crazy
reality.
thing is it's gotten
the same.
The crazy thing is it actually has likely gotten much better. Now think about how bad it must have been if it's still like this now.
Or now we're
It has
seeing it
gotten
with
better.
camera phones and things like that.
Right,
More
yeah,
people are
I mean-
Right, we're more aware of it
Yeah.
now.
I'm more aware of it.
Guys, I'm
Meaning
sorry
of
to
that.
cut you off. We do have to take a quick break, but I appreciate you continuing
Well,
the
thank you.
dialogue with your music, your message, using your voice, Us So or Else, and Title and Beyond. People can check that out. But your Falcons, can we talk about that? Can we go on with that? That's
This was a wonderful week.
You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to talk about it. Absolutely.
Well, then, we're gonna have
Today is on
Falcons
Jets.
tonight,
Let's
but
talk
we're
about the Falcons.
contenders. You will tell us that when First Take returns. Stay here.
All right. Yeah, man.
Get that duo. We now.
Yeah, man. You know, good interview. Good interview. Stephen A is still on his lifetime coon train passenger seat. You know, talking about black on black crime. You know what? I don't go past him. That's actually how he is behind the scenes. I think even behind the scenes he'll say the same thing. You know, people say, well, he's a paid coon. I think that's really how he naturally feels. You know, he's going to go and revert to these coon white supremacist talking points, talking about what about black on black crime. I truly believe that's how he is. You know, and people always talk about, well, you know, Stephen A. Smith. Y'all need to fire Stephen A. Smith. He's a sellout. He's a coon. Well, again, are you guys confused about the system or the person or the employee? Stephen A. Smith is an employee of ESPN, right? So if he gets fired, he could be replaced easily by another paid coon. You see? So don't get mad at the employee, get mad at the employer, right? If you don't want ESPN to continue to hire or actually pay black people to basically speak on egregious information regarding black people in our society today and be paid for it, then boycott the system, not the employee, right? So that's what you got to do. But yeah, T.I. made some, very good points, man, to counter Stephen A. Smith's bloviating, like he likes to use that word, of these coon and white supremacist talking points about black on black crime. I've talked about black on black crime and the progenitor and the root cause of that many a times in my past videos, family. All you got to do, what you have to do, family, is this, okay? And I'll bring it on my screen once again to talk about this. All right, go back into the 1960s. All right, there was several reports back in the 60s that were commissioned by the president at the time, President Lyndon B. Johnson. All right. The report was the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders. I'll bring up the actual real-time document. This was the actual document downloaded off of the Library of Congress website. The real document that's scanned. Okay, and this was issued by President Lyndon B. Johnson, July 29th, 1967. All right, the premise of this document was to find out the social ills, all right, and the injustices of black people during the 60s. Why was there such civil unrest amongst black people, right? Why was this violence, rioting, shooting, etc., etc.? Again, history always repeats itself. It just always does. It something that you think is happening today happened already before a while back. So refer to this document, family. This document, and I've always talked about this before. All right. The conclusion of this document, they said, was that we live in two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. And they say the root cause for the social ills and the social injustices of black people in this country was because of white racism. Okay, now white racism is according to the compensatory code system concept, that's an oxymoron. You should basically say white supremacy. All right, there's only one form of racism, and that's white supremacy. There's no such thing as black racism, because obviously we're not in a position to be and practice racism collectively as a group. But this is the form I always talk about right here. Okay, guys, the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders. This was the commission panel right here in the 1960s. And again, all of this stuff they talked about in the 60s is still happening to this day. This document is still extremely relevant till this day. So, all of the things, all of the counterpoints that T.I. was talking about against these white supremacist coon talking points that Stephen A. Smith likes to say, you can go to this document right here. Okay, this was a document produced in the 1960s, 1967, President Lyndon B. Johnson, and they found that the root cause of social ills of this country was racism, white supremacy. Their words was white racism. All right. So, and if you want to be PC, like they want to say, institutional racism, and we know institutional racism is controlled by white people. That's white supremacy. All right. So, again, that was a good dialogue. I'm interested in hearing T.I.'s EP. People always when they want to go into consciousness, right, or go into being enlightened and know more about your history, the first people you want to go to of black people is the typical Malcolm X's and the typical Martin Luther Kings, right? They have a lot of great audio that you can find online, right? But their main, before they died, their main thing that they wanted to establish before they died, they wanted to get slavery reparations. Malcolm X talked about it. MLK talked about it. They wanted to get reparations for the social ills and injustices and the over 400 years of mistreatment, domination, subjugation, execution, etc. of black people in this country. They were working on that and they died. So, that's a testament to what they were trying to do, as well as Johnny Cochran before he died in the early 2000s. He was working on a class action lawsuit, which is what I will be working on for slavery reparations, right? So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to, I want to hear T.I.'s EP, because the brother, he's real. He's definitely, aware of what's going on and very sharp in terms of the social injustices and actually using his platform as an MC to talk about the injustices of black people. You got coon rappers like Lil Wayne talking about he never experienced racism, don't know what the hell's going on. All he's worried about is his kids. T.I. got, I don't know how many kids, like 8, 9 kids, right? And still is conscious and is aware of what's going on pertaining to black people collectively as a group, as us being mistreated and executed justifiably by these race soldiers, right? So, and he talked about, these race soldiers, they have basically a no snitch policy. You rarely see these race soldiers, speak out against injustices within their own system, because they follow a code. They follow a code of conduct, which is why they don't speak out against each other. They don't testify against each other. They don't, none of that stuff. You don't see that because they are the biggest no snitch They practice no snitch policy better than anybody. Y'all talk about black people being no snitches. These race soldiers, right? And people who are not familiar with race soldier, a race soldier is a person who is disguised as a police officer, but he uses his power as a police officer to mistreat people who are black and brown in this country. Okay? So they mistreat people based off color. That's what a race soldier is. Okay? They are wannabe police officers who are white supremacists. Okay? Who want to mistreat people based off color. And that's what I'll talk about in another document about white supremacists infiltrating law enforcement. The FBI document released in 2006. This is what's happening today. So yeah, man, that was a good dialogue in the ESPN First Take interview with T.I. Like I said, man, I'm looking forward to hearing that EP. Y'all should cop the EP too, because I'm pretty sure he's gonna be talking about some really good topics and making some really good music. So looking forward to that. So that was my take on that interview on ESPN First Take with T.I. Let me know what you guys think down below about the interview. It was a little bit delayed. The audio and the video was kind of out of sync, but you can still hear, everything. So that was not my computer. That was the video that they uploaded. And again, I do everything raw and uncut, unedited. So it is what it is. All right, family. Sean C., a.k.a. you, Kareem, on Great Men of God Media. Let me know what you guys think down below. Signing out. Peace. Out.